Good morning Year 4, and this is your literacy video for if you've got this booklet or this booklet on Thursday the 4th of February. I'm going to start by saying a very big well done, and that's to Dion. A fantastic effort with your handwriting, Dion. Please keep it up, and let's see who else I can congratulate in my next video. Now, each lesson we start by looking at 6 high frequency words, and this week our high frequency words all begin with the letter B. But if you look behind me, you'll notice that I've written my high frequency words using pictures, and it's going to be your job to crack the code. Okay, so you might want to pause the video so that you can see the spellings of the words that I've represented using pictures, and so that you can also see what each of those symbols mean. Okay, pause the video now. Brilliant, well done. Okay, so let's have a little look at the first one then. So this one is B-E-N, bean. Then we've got B-A-C, back. Then we've got B-E, bear. Next we've got before. Then we've got because. And finally we've got began. So well done if you managed to get those at home. Now we're going to start with this booklet first of all, and today's learning does involve you doing some reading today. Okay, so your learning question for today says, can I use my phonics knowledge to support reading a rhyme? And the text you've got today is a rhyme, and I'm sure lots of you will have heard it before. It's called Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet. And Little Miss Muffet is about a girl. I'm going to draw a picture of her here. So it's about a girl. And she's sat on a tuffet, which is a little bit like a chair. So there's the chair that Little Miss Muffet is sat on. And she's eating some food. And then before she knows it, a spider ends up dangling down next to her, which scares Little Miss Muffet, and she runs away, terrified. Okay, so now we know a little bit about the rhyme. Let's have a little think of some of the sounds that we need to know to help us to read this. So we're going to look first. Okay, so how do we say them? So these are different ways of making the sound. Can you say for me? Well done for saying your sound. And then I've chosen 2 words from our rhyme that use that sound. So here I've got k-d-s. What would that be if we blended it back together? So it would be curds. Curds. And curds are the food that Little Miss Muffet is eating, and I've got a picture of it here. And it doesn't look very nice. It's made from cooking milk. Okay, it doesn't look very nice. So that uses our sound. And then the next word that uses our sound is sp. What would that say if we blended it together? It would be spider. And who can remember where our spider appears in our rhyme? Okay, so it's coming towards the end of our rhyme, where she sat eating her curds, and then a spider pops down beside her. My goodness. Okay, so the first sound we need to know to help us is our sound. Make sure you're listening for that sound. And the next one we need to know, year 4, is our I sound. Okay, so we can make it this way. I, and that's a trigraph because it's got 3 letters that make our sound. Or over here we've got our split digraph sound. Okay, so my first one, B, E, S, I, D, beside. Okay, and beside means next to. Okay, so this girl is beside the ball, or the ball is beside her. Okay, it just means next to. And then our final word, it does look like quite a long one, so let's sound it out together. Frightened. Frightened, and frightened means scared or terrified. And can anybody remember what scared or frightened little Miss Muffet? Okay, well done then, year 4. So let's have a look at our text and see what you've got to do next. And for today, you're going to turn to page 20. Okay, so here is our rhyme, and we've got to do our best at reading it. Now, we all know the first line because that's the title of our rhyme, and I've said it lots and lots to you. Little Miss Muffet sat on who thinks they can read this word? Sound it out. Eating her curds and whey. Along came a who sat down and frightened Miss Muffet away. And what you've got to do today, year 4, is you've got to think about these pictures at the bottom. So here I can see a picture of little Miss Muffet, and she's got a bowl in her hand and a spoon, like she's eating her curds and whey. And then in the next picture, there's a spider that's appeared from this tree. So the spider has appeared next to her, beside her. What happens next? Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider who sat down beside her. And then what happens, year 4? Now, once you've drawn that picture, you know I like to set you an extra challenge. And your extra challenge today is asking you to answer these questions. So the first one says, what is little Miss Muffet eating? Okay, so what is she eating? And then finally, why does she run away? What makes her run away? Well done, year 4. So now let's turn to this booklet. Okay, so if you've got this one now, this is where you need to start watching the video from. And your learning question today, year 4, says, can I use a text to answer retrieval questions? And I've popped a picture of this character in the corner. Who can remember who he is? Okay, so that's Rex Retriever, and remember he likes going into that text and pulling out all of the information. So that's the skill you're going to need today. And if you've got this booklet, your text is called Flat Stanley. And Flat Stanley is about a family. So there's a dad, a mum, and two little boys. So the boys are brothers. And one morning, one of the brothers wakes up to find out that Stanley is as flat as a pancake. Okay, so before we turn to our text, I want to introduce you to the characters in our story. Okay, so Mr. George Lambchop is the dad in the story. Okay, so if we see anything that says Mr. Lambchop or anything that says George, that's about dad. Okay, Mrs. Lambchop is mum, and then their two children is Arthur, and he's the littlest of their two children, the youngest, and Stanley. And Stanley is their oldest child. And remember, the title of our story is Flat Stanley. So something is going to happen to Stanley to make him flat like a pancake. Okay, so before we move on to reading our text in Year 4, let's have a little look at some of the unfamiliar vocabulary that you might see. So the first one is in favour of, and that means that they like it. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop are in favour of politeness. And politeness is using our manners. And at Sandon, we are fantastic at using our manners. We are very, very polite. So Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop would have liked us. The next one is a bulletin board. And a bulletin board is like a notice board. And you know, in my classroom where I've got my two big red boards, they are notice boards, and that's where I stick my important things. Or if we have a message from Mrs. Beckett, I write that on there, don't I? Okay. And then finally, we need to know what cheerfully means. And cheerfully means happy. So now let's turn to our text and see if we can have a go at reading it. So you're going to turn to page 24. And I'll start by reading you the first two paragraphs. Breakfast was ready. So if breakfast is ready, think about what time of day it would be. Is it going to be morning or night? It's going to be morning. I will go wake the boys, Mrs. Lambchop said to her husband, George Lambchop. So now we've met Mum and Dad. Just then, their younger son, Arthur, so their littlest child, called from the bedroom he shared with his brother Stanley, and that's their older child. Hey, come and look, hey! Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop were both very much in favour of, so that means that they like, politeness and careful speech. Hay is for horses, Arthur, not people, Mr. Lambchop said as they entered the bedroom. Try to remember that. Excuse me, Arthur said, but look. So now I would like you to read the last part of our text, so starting here and going all the way down. See if you can spot any of those words that we've already spoken about. Brilliant, well done Year 4. You're trying really, really hard with your reading. So let's have a little look at some of our questions then. So, question number 1. At what time of day is the text set? How do you know? Now, I've already spoken to you about that one, so please read sentence number 1, and the answer is in there. Is Stanley older or younger than Arthur? So think, who was the littlest child and who was the biggest? Can you remember? You might want to rewind my video if you can't. Why do you think the author uses exclamation marks? And that's what these look like, where there's a line and a dot. When Arthur says, hey, come and look, hey. Now, when do we use exclamation marks? Think about how I read that to you. Did I read it like this? Hey, come and look, hey. Or did I read it with a bit of excitement and a bit of shouting almost? Hey, come and look, hey. Okay. Why does Mr. Lamchop tell Arthur hay is for horses? So hay is a homophone, and we talked about homophones when we looked at father. Okay, so father meant either a dad or it meant far away. And hay is another word for high, or it's something that horses eat, isn't it? So have a little think about why Mr. Lamchop would tell Arthur that hay is for horses. Question 5 is what woke Stanley up? Now, I haven't read that part of the text to you, so you might want to turn back to your text and look for anything that tells us when Stanley woke up. Can you find anything? Once you've found it, don't forget to copy it down. And the final question, Year 4, is a little bit different than questions we normally answer. And it says, copy a word from the text to show Stanley isn't worried about being under the board. So if he isn't worried, worried means that you're a little bit frightened and you're thinking a little bit about it. So the opposite of that would be that he's quite happy. So can we find a word from the text that means happy? And we spoke about this when we looked at our key vocabulary. And it's down here somewhere. And you've just got to copy one word. Now, when you've done that, your Year 4, I've set you a challenge. And it says, what things would you be able to do if you were completely flat? So rather than being 3D like we are, if you were as flat as this piece of paper, what new things would you be able to do? Write me them down, please. And once you've done your questions and you've done your challenge Year 4, let's end our lesson by having a little think about what we've achieved today. Let's roll our dice. And we've landed on a number 1. What was the outcome of the lesson supposed to be? So what did I want you to learn today? Don't forget to take a picture and send it to the Year 4 email address.